of the picture. Is that something that's supposed to be there?
Yeah, how's
There you
that?
go. Thank you.
You
Awesome.
got it. All right, everybody. The time is 8:30. We are here live on Animal House Radio, and we got a special guest back by popular demand. We had him on about a year or so ago, and he took the show by storm. Welcome back to the Animal House Radio show, Mr. Patrick Kilpatrick.
Hey, it's great to be here. Nice to see you, big guy. How are
Yeah,
you?
it's good to see you, my friend. I'm glad to see you're doing well, and you got a lot of stuff going on. I'm excited to hear about every bit of it.
Well, God, let me see if I can even resurrect it. My company, Uncommon Dialogue Films, uh, I got hired to write and produce a big Asian themed thriller,
Oh,
which
okay.
is really great. And so we're midstream with that. A lot of research has gone into it, and I'm midway through the script. Um, Producing consulting is taken off. We've been working a lot with private clients to shepherd their projects from idea inception to global return, which is really kind of the catchphrase: idea inception to global return. So,
Yeah, right.
maybe, and really, there's a lot of steps in all of that. So, we've been working with some really interesting clients doing that, and that's been a great. I got married about a year and 2 months ago, so it's been really wonderful for me in COVID to be quarantined with my wife. So, and she's also an executive, and I really don't mean this just because she's my wife, but she really is vitally involved in everything we do as a company. So we're really having a great time working together and spending time together. Makes it a little hard with the grandchildren and the sons. She's got two sons and I have two sons. So we, a lot of FaceTiming and
Right.
getting together on the beach and things like that. So where it's safe, and particularly for the newborn grandchildren. So we're trying to be very, very safe with all of that.
Absolutely. And I don't remember getting a wedding invite. It must have got crossed in the mail.
Well, we did it in a very exotic way because I got engaged in Morocco while I was filming there.
Oh, wow.
With the cast and crew of a movie called Night Walk that's coming out, got bought by Lionsgate.
Cool.
And then the following year, we got married down in Cartagena in Colombia because we were going down. Her sister had an Airbnb place in Bonaire, which is an island off the coast of Venezuela.
Ooh.
And so we were going so far. I was a journalist in Colombia in 78 to 80. So I said, we're going that far. We might as well go to Cartagena to see how that place had prospered and grown. And I'd read a lot of great things about it. And it's a great city anyway. I urge any of your traveling listeners to check it out sometimes, but to always stay in the old city. It's a fantastic place. I don't know if you know anything about Cartagena, but it was the place where the Spanish brought all the gold after they looted the continent. And so the whole town is a fortress, basically a vault.
Oh, wow.
And so you stay there, and it's become this incredibly vibrant, wonderful place inside the vault. So the road around the town, you're driving on the top of the big wall, and they would load the Spanish ships, all the gold into that, and ship them back to Spain. So we got married down there, and we were going to have an American ceremony, but COVID just blew that right out of the water.
Yeah.
And so, but we've had a really wonderful romantic time, and
that's amazing. Congratulations.
Thank you very much.
It's funny you mentioned Cartagena because, unfortunately, now that you told me it's such a beautiful place, I had no idea. See, when I hear that name, I think of the drug cartels.
Sure. Yeah.
It's unfortunate, but yeah.
Well, they had a lot of that stuff in the 80s and the 90s, and I'm sure some of it still goes on. Of course, the drug war hasn't gone away and drug issues, but they really spent a lot of time and energy turning it into a fabulous place, and it's very hospitable to tourists. They have world class food there. It's really an extraordinary place, and the people, you'll see people there that you won't see anywhere else. I don't know. It's kind of that mixture of Indian and Spanish and all the Caribbean races, and
Oh, wow.
there's a culture there that you won't see anyplace else that I've ever seen. Just like Hawaii is a polyglot of Asian races and a lot of other things. Uh, Colombia and Cartagena in particular it's a global destination.
Wow. Well, now that you told me that, it's now I'm eager to see what it looks like. But I got to congratulate you. The first time we had you on the show was to promote your book, and I and
Right.
I heard it took off, and that was so great because I enjoyed it very much.
Well, I'm glad that you did. Volume two, I'm midway through the polish, and was going headstrong into it. To polish it. It was already written before we published volume one, but I was polishing it. And then I suddenly realized I was literally writing two books because of the COVID thing. Um,
Right.
so, and then I kind of put it on hold because of this movie project,
Right.
but it continues apace. Volume two, Wasted Talent in the Valley of Debacle, Dying for Living, Wasted Talent in the Valley of Debacle. Um, and I'm pleased to announce that my son is, Sam Kilpatrick, is illustrating it. He just graduated from architectural school,
Oh,
uh,
wow.
and arguably the number one or two student from the California College of the Arts. He's a really fabulous young man, and uh, it took some persuading for him to participate in my crazy life, but he is now has been starting to submit some illustrations. So I hope that'll be a new dimension to volume two that wasn't present in volume one. But in
Well,
volume two is all show business. It has nothing to do with upbringing. I'm
right,
sure it
right.
has a lot to do with me, but it has a lot to do. It's all show business, and he just turned in a drawing involving me and Pam Grier, which I thought was really fabulous. And so we hope to offer a lot to people the next time the book stuff comes out.
Absolutely. I tell you, Patrick, you of all the people that we've ever met, you've picked the coolest and most unique book names for your books. It's so fun. And I think it's great because that's a what you call it? That's a it catches you. You know what I'm saying? It's a good grab when you look at it.
Well, I'm very lucky. I started out as an advertising writer and a journalist in New York, and all of that training is really translated into film work and film, particularly film producing. I early on got a real affection working at Life magazine for photographs, and so we're able to really, really capture some visual qualities to our projects. And yeah, you don't want to put a book unless it's got a cover that's going to leap off of the shelves.
Right.
So I'm fortunate that I've worked with some really good photographers, and they've taken some good pictures. We're going to do a shoot for that one coming up, though, that involves a ridiculously powerful motorcycle that I got. It's completely nuts. I grew up with Italian motorcycles, Italian, English motorcycle Triumphs and Moto Guzzi's and
Oh,
uh,
wow.
Bull Tacos. A couple of it. That was a Spanish bike. I had a Harley 1200 at one time, chopped, crazy bike. But I did an MC job for a music festival
Right.
in Carson City, Nevada, that was to benefit the four beautiful children of a slain police officer. They asked me to come up there and be the MC for this music festival. So while I was there, it took place at this huge Harley dealership, and they put me on this motorcycle to do YouTube advertisements commercials for the music festival. And I looked down at this motorcycle. I said, "This is the prettiest motorcycle I ever saw. You should give this to me so that I can put it in a film and television show." And they laughed. They said, "Well, we won't give it to you, but we'll give you a good deal." So I got this motorcycle, never having driven it, and I hadn't driven a motorcycle since 1980. So they deliver this motorcycle by truck, and it's like 3 times the power, the size of an engine that from the Moto Guzzi 850 Le Mans that I had in 1980, which itself was a rocket ship.
Oh, yeah.
This thing was, I mean, Harley's a special beast. I mean, it's customized. It's got a kind of a quieter exhaust system because I'm not really into the loud noise. And it's beautiful. It's got a beautiful paint job just for the dealership. And it says Battleborn Harley on it. Well, I go out driving this thing and it's so powerful. It didn't have a windshield on it. And literally I would accelerate and I'd be practically blown right off of the bike. And it turned out I had a motorcycle license that still remained from 1980 in New York. It had not expired. So I did the Harley Academy anyway, because I didn't want to get killed. Driving a motorcycle in LA is the definition of defensive driving. I mean, because, you know, you've got to figure a bank robber is going to come out of any side street, any driveway, any cross thing, anywhere. You've got to be prepared for a bank robber or a maniac on a homemade Road Warrior motorcycle with no lights and no license plate. I mean, now I'm staying at my wife's place in Venice. It's literally like beyond Thunderdome here now.
Oh my God!
The homeless situation is off the charts, and you know, you have. Everybody, they said we're going to open up a little bit from COVID, and they just went nuts down here. Yeah. So I mean, and they have those little scooters now that everybody's on, some of which have no lights. So it's like you're in an adult video game all the time, and things are attacking you from the left, right, and center all the time when you're traveling. And here I am, you know, in the late portion of my life. And I have become this. I have 2 electric bikes as well, and I have an English racing bike because that's my chief form of exercise when we're in Venice. So I'm this 2-wheeled creature in this world of constant assault and constant obstacles coming at you from every direction. So you better really be on your toes when you're driving here. The good news is with the motorcycle, it forced me to drive so slow with it weighs 900 pounds. So if you tip it over, it'll take you and like 4 guys to right the motorcycle. So I had to learn, and it's really the best thing that you could do is to learn how to drive it very, very slowly because you have to become really adept at the balance of it. So we're going to do a photo shoot with the motorcycle, and we've already used it for a couple. So anyway, I'm being long-winded, but really it's a strange life here now. You know, I mean, Venice is just nuts. I was here 35 years ago when I first came to LA, and it's just a different beast now.
Yeah. So, you know, you talk about motorcycles. You brought me back because I've never owned like a Harley or a big hog. I've always had off-road bikes, dirt bikes. I started out with a Honda 50, and then you mentioned Moto Guzzi. I actually had one of their mopeds going back, but the one bike,
a great machine.
Yeah, the one bike I really loved was my Kawasaki Ninja. Boy, did I have fun with that.
Oh, yeah.
That's still the best bike around, you know. I wish I could go back to driving like that again.
What year was that?
Got to be in the late 80s, early 90s, I want to say.
Yeah, I had a Kawasaki 1972 500.
And
it was a rocket ship. Yeah. Painted orange, like that flaming orange they had. Yeah. I got it tuned up once and brought it out of the motorcycle. shop, and it was so tuned up and so fast that I almost lost it about, I don't know, 30 yards outside of the shop because it was just a rocket ship. Uh,
Wow.
anyway, motorcycles. I find myself a motorcyclist
It's so
again.
relaxing though, just to be able to get on an open road and just open it up and
Well,
just.
but forget open road. I've got to go 3 hours out of LA to find an open road. The traffic here has totally negated the driver machine experience. I mean, I never get out of second gear.
Right, right.
You
How
know,
many points do you get in a video game if you hit a homeless person?
yeah, you get sued by half of LA's the same group that stops any gentrification in Venice.
Yeah,
You know,
I went to Venice. It's got to be 8 years ago, and I went down. One of the things I wanted, I was doing I was performing down at the Comedy Store, and I got on a regular bike, and I started down to Santa Monica, and I pedaled down to Venice Beach, and I walked the boardwalk, and you see all the street people, the vendors, and it was a fair amount of homeless people. But I had to go to Muscle Beach and experience it for myself, and I actually ran into Chris Mulkey, who was an actor. He was actually working at the time. I got to talk to him, but I mean, I thought it was a beautiful place, but I could see that it was starting to lose its luster.
well, I'm considering running for mayor in 2022,
Oh
and
wow!
the and I'm grateful. The film business has been so encompassing and consuming recently that we put that on hold. But I actually wrote the paperwork, and I have vowed if I run for mayor that within 90 days of taking office, that homelessness will be over in Venice, and that the streets of Venice will be paved, and that we'll go from one neighborhood to the next and doing those kinds of improvements. By the way, if you really get into the homelessness here, you realize they have no facilities for people with addictions. They have no facilities, I mean, other than really expensive ones that people with insurance can pay. And
Hmm.
then they have very great facilities, but they have no plan for extraditing these people into an environment where they can get out of homelessness. They just allow it to occur. So here in COVID, I can't even imagine what the disease rates are
Yeah.
in those environments. But I have said there are a couple of things that want to make me run for mayor. I've been here in Los Angeles for going on 35 years. And the Santa Monica Bay has been polluted the entire time I've been here. And if you're a surfer, you run the
Yeah.
risk of getting meningitis, and you have constant earaches and sinus aches and sinus infections and everything else. And I say a city of LA's vision and scope deserves to have a bay that you can swim in, and it deserves not to have a homeless problem, and it deserves not to have rats and plague propagating here. And that is directly on the responsibility of the government that is here.
Right.
And they're completely, there's plenty of money. There's plenty of money to put it together. Where
Hmm.
is it going?
Right.
Just the money they collect from parking meters every year runs into the hundreds of millions of dollars. And so where are our parks? Where are our streets being asphalted? Why is this city that should look like the Riviera of the West Coast looking like a tarnished slum? It's
Wow.
ridiculous. And somebody needs to be elected here that can
Right.
get something done, that can actually accomplish some things here.
There's no
So,
state-run programs or federal programs to help these homeless people. And I love everything you're saying, Patrick. But what are you going to do? What could you do that your predecessor couldn't do? How do you get to cut through all the bureaucracy and the red tape to get it done?
well, I've looked into it, and I've looked at people. By the way, I've also said within 90 days, There will be organic breakfast and lunch at every one of our schools, public schools in LA, because it can be done. It's been done. We did it in Santa Barbara. The bottom line is there are organizations and groups standing by to help to do these things, and the government is not facilitating it happening. And it's not happening because of levels of corruption and because of level, as you say, bureaucracy. They don't allow people to get things done in this city, and it can be done. And they need somebody to come in here and get rid of that stuff so that they can actually accomplish things happening here. Because it's not happening, it's only getting worse. I'm not saying the government doesn't do anything right. I'm saying they do have programs, but here's a good question for you. Why doesn't one person who's a billionaire, like a Bill Gates or somebody like that, peel off some small change and build the facilities that can house people with addiction and schizophrenia and treatment, and the people who are well can house them in a place where they can have jobs beautifying the city and building parks and making LA the world-class city that it should be. Not what it is, because it is a world-class city. And these people, the people here have great innovation and great energy. But why doesn't one of those people peel off they talk about all this stuff. They want to do all this stuff, but that's chump change to some of these people. So where is that action? Explain, what am I missing there?
I don't know. It's, with all the celebrities there and all the people, the studio execs and people of money and tycoons and all that, you would have thought it was that. I don't know. It's a complacency, or they just don't give a shit. I don't.
I can only think that it's greed. That's the only thing that it can be. Yeah. Because it doesn't take that much money to do what I'm proposing to do. Right. I would think that a combination of private sector and government programs put together, and by the way, there are programs that work. There are programs right now that are having results. Are they being fostered on a larger scale? No, they are not.
Probably not. No.
And by the way, is that fair? What's going on to the shopkeepers who have their lives invested in the city? Our recent riots. Where's the concern for the people who actually were burned out and taken out by all this social unrest? I'm sorry, but the shoe is on the wrong foot on a lot of these levels. Yeah, I'm all for people protesting in a proper way, but what about the people that had their lifetime dreams completely obliterated by organized crime and looters? There's no emphasis on those people. So
there really isn't. Between the virus and the protests, a lot of people lost their livelihoods. And, we talk to celebrities all the time, Patrick. And is it getting any better in LA? I mean, I heard the deaths are down, but are the cases because these people don't want to wear masks. They want to still gather. Is it getting worse, or is it sort of easing up in LA?
Well, I've made a very conscious decision, and I want to share with you when I talk about running for mayor, I've made a very conscious decision not to involve politics in it at all, because what we need in America right now is people who get things done. We don't need Democrats. We don't need Republicans. We don't need any of this partisan bickering. I love to debate. You probably just know from hanging around with me. I love to debate more than anybody. But about 3 months ago, I came to the conclusion, I'm not going to do that anymore. What I'm going to do is get things done. So I serve my clients. I serve my film audience. I serve the global cinematic audience. I serve the screenwriters and the writers and the staff and the crew that I work with, that I create jobs for. And if I was running for mayor, I would be serving all people, whether they were Democrats or Republicans. And I don't even want to talk about that stuff.
Yeah.
I want to say, how are we going to get stuff done? There is so much bickering going on in this country right now, and it's not what this country or the world needs. We need to not be bickering. We need to be getting things done using the best and brightest minds of generations from top to bottom, and it can happen. How could I do things differently? I've already begun seeing. It's just a concept of you close off the sewage that goes into the bay and you get it treated properly. How difficult is that for one of the most visionary places on the planet? How do you get rid of homelessness? You build them construction places, facilities, and you place them in places where it's appropriate so that they can get treatment for addiction and schizophrenia, and you provide housing for people to get back on their feet who are also exercising their own responsibility and their own accountability to do. If they don't have a job, then you put them to work painting the city, creating parks, doing that stuff, and you make sure that you get fine, integrity-based managers to do so. It's not people are always talking about the challenges we have in life. The challenges we have in life are really not that difficult.
Right. What you're suggesting is relatively simple. It's just, for some reason, there's the right people aren't involved, Patrick. You got to get the right people involved. Like you said, that have integrity and people who are going to get things done. Put the partisan aside. We need a mover and a shaker.
Well, you need people to exercise just like you exercise to get a movie done. You need to exercise supreme force of will, supreme vision. It's not so different for a government. What do you do when you create a film? You come up with a vision. You come up with the execution plan. You come up with the economic plan. You take it to the audience. You take a government vision to the electorate. You get elected and you exercise the plan. You distribute the film. You distribute the plan. It's the same mechanism, really.
Right.
And so I hope I can see my way to doing it. I'm not going to sabotage my films. I would probably have to put them completely aside. And I love what I do. But you're right. Somebody's got to come forth to start serving this country in every way, in a nonpartisan way, because the Democrat-Republican thing isn't working.
Yeah.
And it didn't work for World War II. It didn't work for the space program. It didn't work for a lot of great things that we're known as Americans. And by the way, we can be a symbol to the rest of the world, just as we can take ideas from the rest of the world and make them our own as well. I mean, I think the finest thing we can do for the world is for America to be an extraordinary, morally based place that celebrates freedom. It's sometimes when you say morally based, people connote that as some sort of repression. The truth is, you can't be a citizen without responsibility. I describe myself as a libertine patriot. I couldn't possibly be more socially free. But when it comes to the country and when it comes to the world, we need to all start pulling together. What do you do with people who are? I'm all for mask mandates. If you don't wear a mask in the pandemic, then you're penalized for it. You're fined, and that gets enforced. I'm not for lockdowns. I think people need to go back to work, and I think the country needs to be opened up with. Just like they're doing now in restaurants. And there's some we've got a dining scene here now. They're stretching out into the streets. That's some quick, fancy, innovative thinking. And that's the way we have to approach life. How do we get this done?
Exactly. Exactly. You know, there's no quick fix, but you know, you have the right ideas. It's just a matter of implementing them. And then with one person, you know, you need to surround yourself with people who are like-minded, and that's how you get things done.
Of course you do. Well, what do they say? I think Henry David Thoreau said, if you proceed confidently, great forces will align with you and you will succeed beyond your wildest imagining. And it is true. You're talking to a guy who set out at 32 and decided to become an actor, and 200 films later, and then decided to become a screenwriter in 1987 and became a screenwriter, and started his own film company. So thank God we live in a country where if you decide to do something, to exercise something, and you use all of your resources to do it, you can
Right.
get it done.
Exactly. You know, it's speaking of your film career, you have one of the most amazing resumes I've ever seen. I've been a big fan of yours for a long time. And for those of just joining us, we're talking live here with a good friend of the show, actor and author Patrick Kilpatrick. You've seen him in almost everything. As a matter of fact, I was at work today, and I work at a scrapyard during the day. You know, because right now that's an essential thing, and I work in a certain area where I have to take computers apart all day, and I take hard drives. I have to take the boards off. Everything gets broken down and sold off. Long story short, I watch a lot of movies on my phone while I'm working, and today was one of my favorite movies from the '80s, and I almost forgot that you were in. I was watching The Adventures of Remo Williams.
Oh yeah, it was the first studio film I ever did. It was,
Really?
yeah, I mean, I'd done stage in New York, and I'd done lots of independent film, and I'd done Toxic Avenger for Trauma, but it was literally, I'd done a lot of television in New York, but it was literally the first, I didn't audition for that. The great directors that I've worked with, they don't even have to audition you. They talk to you for a short time.
Right.
Guy Hamilton, who directed The Battle of Britain and some of the early Bond films, was the
Right.
director. And I went in and talked to him for 15 minutes, and he hired me. And oh my God, we shot down in Mexico, and I mean, just my per diem, I felt like a god in Mexico. I mean, literally. And the first time I landed, I got a cab from the airport to the hotel, and it cost me $2.50 to get to the hotel. And I found out later I had gotten ripped off.
Oh wow, really?
You could get a cab for one day for $3.
Wow.
I mean,
Not anymore. Yeah.
well, not anymore, but I mean, it was just an extraordinary time, and wonderful Wilford Brimley was in that show, and Fred Ward. I've been meaning to call Fred and just see what he's up to. He's got a production company as well.
I'd love to get him on the show. I always liked his work, but I got to ask you, the one you had that diamond chip in your tooth, and your
Yeah.
name and the movie was Stone. That scene where he had to cut the glass, you looked like you were in a lot of pain. Was that a difficult scene to get through?
No, they did press me up against the glass, and I think they actually scored the cracking of the glass thing to. Let me just turn it. By the way, you're aware of what's going on with the Screen Actors Guild, but the bottom line is if I remember correctly, the technique was they scored the glass first, then they shoved my face against it and made it seem like it was being scored. But no, I don't remember any pain. I wanted the diamond, and because it was a prosthesis.
Right.
It was like a bridge, and I said, "Can I have it?" And they said, "Well, you can have it after the show, but never that. You got to get them to give you the stuff right while you're there.
Right.
If you wait till after the show, you're not going to get it."
Yeah.
So I
I
had a
mean,
wonderful time.
you're. I just love everything you do. You've been in so many great movies, and I love the one was with you when you worked on what was that? Under Siege with Seagal. Under Siege 2.
Under Siege 2, yeah.
Dark Territory. I love that line.
By the way, lots of stories about this stuff in Volume 2.
Oh, really? Okay, that's
A
what
lot of stuff.
it's already a must read for me. But I love what that line in the movie. Assumption is the mother of all fuck ups.
Yeah, I bet you remember it better than I. Um, yes. Who said that? Everett McGill?
No, I think it was
Eric Bogosian?
yeah, one of those. I think they both said it at one point in the movie. It was so
I,
funny.
I have to tell you, I had so much fun on that movie. And I'll tell you why, because the stunt guys are the
Mhm.
most irreverent people you've ever seen in your life. I mean, they live on the edge and they're really great storytellers and they have a lot of fun. And we had every stunt guy in Hollywood there for that. And plus, you had these hardcore New York actors like Eric Bogosian and Peter Green and LA actors, and nobody was going to take any guff from anybody. And, the stories that I have on that one are pretty epic. I think it's another reason why I wrote these books. I had so many great stories about some of these people and about the just a fun life. They hired me. I was going through a divorce, and they hired me. I auditioned for that one, and just the audition process was epic. But my agent called and said they hired you for this movie, and they're only going to give you 10 grand a week. And I was going through a divorce, and I was down to not just down to $50. I was down to $50 that was left over that my father had lent me 5,000 to help me through the divorce. The only time
Wow.
he ever lent me any money, and I paid him back with interest. But I was down to $50 on the 5,000, 5,000. And then, when 12 hours later, I was in the highest condo in Vail, Colorado, with 4 bedrooms and 5 baths, 5 fireplaces, a cord of wood on the deck, and a grand piano. And I was getting 10 grand a week for 14 weeks. And I call that in the book that golden Hollywood moments. I've had a couple of them, like Spielberg calling up my agent and saying, I want to hire him. I mean, come on. I mean, Spielberg calling your agent. My agent burst out crying. And believe me, agents aren't known for bursting out crying.
Right, right.
So
I
I've
love it.
had a couple of those moments, and I mean, ultimately you're there because you really love the craft and you love telling stories and the intricacies of the work. But I've had a really wonderful life, and connected up with the Westerns. I mean, the Westerns I loved, and the horses. I have a whole chapter just on the horses.
Oh wow! Would you be hard pressed to find to name? I mean, like you have over 200 credits, and you show no signs of slowing down, which is the even greater. Would you be hard pressed to find your favorite project that you worked on?
Uh, People ask this question, and it's a really good question. One answer of it is that every single job, whether it was a play that I got paid $50 a week for, or a film that as a result of that play I got paid 200 grand for, or a big studio movie with Arnold that I got paid a bunch of money for, or a
Right.
$5,000 down and dirty low budget thing that I did over a weekend. The truth is, I loved every single one of those jobs for different reasons,
Right.
but the big studio budget things are great. You make a lot of money, but sometimes the potential for just sitting around is there because there's so many moving parts. In my case, I write and I produce. I take that stuff right into
Right.
the trailer with me. Uh, but uh, in the low budget things, you're writing your own dialogue, you're shooting your own guns, you're driving, doing your own stunt driving. So you're getting cash. It's just, I mean, I loved every single one of them for different reasons. Even the wretched, and I've had some wretched jobs. They were wretched, but I got some incredible stories from it. So, but
Yeah.
as for the favorite, I don't know. It's hard not to love working with Steven Spielberg. It's hard not to work with Nicholas Roeg, who many of your listeners may not know who he is, but now he was one of the great visionary directors of the 20th and the 21st century, recently passed away. But he did The Man Who Fell to Earth and with David Bowie and Walkabout, and just a visionary director. Antoine Fuqua was a lot of fun on Replacement Killers. The most laughter I ever did was on a show called Tour of Duty, which is a Vietnam television show.
Okay, yeah.
Steve Caffrey and Terry Knox. I never laughed so hard in my whole life on that movie. Just a bunch of guys trying to wreak havoc with each other in a fun, lovable brotherhood way.
You know, you're a very accomplished actor. You do theater, you do everything. At one, I mean, did you? I mean, it's got to be the coolest job in the world to play the bad guy in a movie. But at one point, do you say, "Hey, listen, I can do other things. I don't always have to be the heavy hero. Are you just happy to be working?"
Well, for many, many years, I was just happy to work. And also I had a family and a stay-at-home mom. And so I was just blessed to be able to pay for everything and make the living for the family. And it was a great repertory deal to go from one job to another. And I always felt like if I kept delivering the gold for the villains, that someone would come along and give me the silver of a good guy. And in fact, we have in recent times in independent films. But I'd have to say, even the good guys have been usually people that kill a lot of people one way or another. Yeah, it gets to you after a while. And sometimes it doesn't get to me at all because I write and stuff. But it gets to you mostly because they give the most money to the front guys. And here you are going head to head with every top actor in town. Right. And you're just making a fraction of what they're making. Now, I don't complain and I don't compare myself to other people. And I count my blessings. And I've been able to send my two sons to fabulous, expensive, fine colleges and schools and feed them with organic food and everything. And I've done okay. But there's about 1,500 of us that really do the character acting work around Hollywood. Right. 2,000 of them. And we get to live pretty good. But the difference between that and the Tom Cruise levels is astronomical. I mean, it's not even, I don't even know how to relate to somebody at that level. Now, when you start talking about the producing and stuff, then you're into a different realm. Right. I don't regret anything, but sure, can I play good guys? Absolutely.
Oh, yeah, no, I have no doubt.
Unfortunately, Hollywood is a very fast-paced place. And in a town that's devoted to vision, there's not an awful lot of vision. I like to cast people in opposite from what they've done.
Right.
But that's not the prevalent way of casting a lot. Yeah. Now, should I have at some point said, no, I'm not going to do villains anymore until you, yeah, but like I said, I wanted to keep working. And
right. You don't want to burn a bridge.
I've worked very hard with my film company not to get us typecast for only one kind of project.
Right, right.
Because I didn't want that. But everybody gets typecast. Martin Scorsese gets typecast doing criminal movies. And it takes a concerted effort to break out of the box that they put you in. So ultimately, I don't feel too bad about it. I've had a rich, wonderful career. And listen, I'm loving it today. I love producing. I love writing. So I can't.
Well, you should enjoy you the fruits of your labor. There's two things that I really admired about you. I think was pretty cool. One of the things you did, I think, was before acting. You worked with a lot of bands. You were like a bodyguard for a lot of bands, which I'm sure is a whole book in itself.
Yeah, I talked about that in volume 1. I was so blessed. I got out of college 1972, 73, and I went to New York, followed a woman that I later married to New York, and her best friend had her boyfriend. Her best friend's boyfriend was putting together a crew mostly of off-season New York Jets. I was literally, and I was at that time I was 6'2", couple 100 pounds, so I wasn't a small guy. But I was the second smallest guy on this crew, and they were mostly New York Jets that in the off season, some real characters. And we were in charge of bodyguarding all the bands that came into the New York City area. And it was such a delight because you're right on the stage with Jimi Hendrix and the Grateful Dead and Jethro Tull and
Wow.
Rod Stewart and Jeff Beck. It was a crazy, it only lasted about a year and a half. It got incredibly violent. The Hells Angels got involved down at the Academy of Music. Guys started getting killed. And after about 2 years, and then when I did it, they didn't want the police at concerts. You know, it was that brief period of time where they said, we don't want police at concerts. So we became, and I made a lot of money. I was working as a writer during the day. I got paid $6,500 for the year as a writer. It quickly went up because I rose really fast.
Right.
But I was making a lot more money as a bodyguard for rock groups. And, you know, Bruce Springsteen, it was just an amazing moment. I'm very lucky to have stepped into that.
Wow. And then the second thing that I was so impressed at, and you got to work with Lucille Ball.
Her last show, yeah.
Yeah.
Last thing before she passed away.
I mean, what was that like? Comedy legend, icon, first movie, female movie studio executive.
Yeah, I mean, she was playing a homeless person. It was in a movie called Stone Pillow. And I can't really say I got to observe her. Very old, very elderly at that juncture. I talk about it in the book. I was hired. I played a homeless person, and I had to attempt to rape Daphne Zuniga. It was a woman. And there's a whole chapter in my book called "The Rapist's Lament" because I've been hired to rape Daphne Zuniga, Angie Everhart, Naomi Watts. It's a very special set of circumstances.
Wow.
Let me tell you, particularly in the Me Too era.
Right.
When you're hired to sexually assault the lead actress. And, you know, you go in, and I talk about it in the book, you go in and you say, look, this isn't me. I'm not talking about physical harm or physical, I'm talking about the emotional stuff that is reared in people's heads when you're doing that kind of a scene. I almost played Stanley in A Streetcar Named Desire on Broadway. And,
okay.
And Stanley's a rapist. I mean, that's exactly what he is. And the thing is, you can't pull your punches. And I don't mean literal punches. You cannot give up what your character's goal is, right. Psychologically, emotionally, and whatever. No matter how painful that might be, all you can do is talk to the actress and say, this isn't me, this is what, but I've got to come after you for and sometimes these things take days to shoot. And so people come out of it with their bell rung one way. I mean, Naomi Watts kind of liked me. I could tell she liked me. And she was single at the time and we might have dated, but she wasn't interested in dating me after that circumstance.
Was it a hard scene to get through, like doing it? I mean, how did they handle it afterwards, all three of the women?
Well, I can tell you Daphne Zuniga didn't like me much at all. And that was her job to not like me in the deal. And I didn't spend any time with her after it. I've seen Naomi once since then. And the best I can say is just a little wary. You know, I mean, directors sometimes somebody will go to a director that I've worked with playing one of these huge psychotic maniacs, and they'll go, was he difficult? Was he really difficult to work with? The truth is, I'm the least difficult guy you could possibly work with, utterly professional. But because you're playing that, it's like watching a woman who's playing a nun and thinking that's the only thing that she can play. And I've actually been guilty of that too. I do a play with somebody who was playing a nun, and the next thing you see, she's playing a crack whore. So, it's very, very wrong to kind of, it's
typecast,
to typecast or to envision somebody that they're actually like that. Now, do those things reside in my consciousness? Yeah, but mostly it's because I have an active imagination.
Right.
That's what we're supposed to deal in as a writer and as an actor. I write about it a lot because it's a very unique situation playing rapists. I've done it 3 times in my career, and
what? I always found roles like that challenging because how do you research that role?
Well, I do a lot of research. You read all of the books on it. It's the same thing if you're playing a military person. You read all the books on it. I do. I love to read anyway, but I've got a movie coming out called Catalyst, which I'm very excited about because a wonderful young filmmaker, Chris Volkins, and I play a pedophile priest.
Oh, and wow.
The research into that was fascinating.
Wow.
And what you discover is that the motives and forces that cause that kind of pathology are uncomfortably close to those things that start people smoking or overeating or drinking. And none of us is perfect, and so we all have these impulses towards addictions.
Right.
When I say that, I don't absolve those people who exercise sexual assault or pedophilia of any responsibility at all.
Right.
They are completely responsible. But the genesis of this stuff is uncomfortably close to what drives all of us in our lives. And also about 85-90% of them have been abused themselves. Whether they're a serial killer, whether they're it's a cyclical thing. They've been sexually molested themselves a lot of times. And so, again, I think beyond 21, you're totally 22, you're completely responsible for your own behavior. At the same time, it's very interesting to read the struggle. Chris Volkins and I went through everything we could about pedophilia, and I think we came up with some really great stuff because I mean, some of it comes out of just loneliness and wanting somebody to play with when they're children.
Yeah.
That's how pathological it is. Jeffrey Dahmer. Look at Jeffrey Dahmer, cannibal and a serial killer. I don't have a lot of sympathy for serial killers. But I have had some sympathy for Jeffrey Dahmer. The guy was screaming for help at every stage in his life.
Right.
And trying to self-medicate himself with alcohol, and just was incredibly lonely and incredibly devastated by the divorce of his parents.
Some of these guys are so unassuming that they're regular people. But, it's funny because when I graduated high school, one of the things that I wanted to do was I wanted to be a profiler for the FBI because when I say I'm fascinated by serial killers, just like you, I'm not giving them any credence or condoning what they do. I'm fascinated in why they did what they did. And there's always usually a backstory like abuse or some kind of trigger or a catalyst that, but I'll tell you what, with the new movie coming out, I give them a lot of credit because right now everybody is so touchy. It's such a touchy subject, but that, you know what? Hey, it's real life. Unfortunately, it does go on.
Well, it's a very delicate balance to actually have sympathy and empathy for somebody like that. I do think that there are truly, truly people who choose to be evil. They get a taste for it, and I think that's the case of serial killers. And I think just like an animal that gets a taste for killing humans or something like that, and I think their DNA needs to be gotten off of the planet as fast as possible.
Yeah.
I've read the studies, and capital punishment costs more money to put people in prison and stuff. I mean, look, the horrific nature of things that take place. I'm not truly comfortable with somebody when they have DNA evidence and they can prove that somebody did something, actually prove something. I'm I'm sorry, I'm on the fences that we ought to just get these people's DNA off of the planet as fast as possible.
Yeah.
I don't believe in caging them for a lifetime. I just think that at the same time, I have a good friend. She served 25 years. Oh, I'm glad I remembered this because it's important. I have a good friend who's 25 years for murder. She's and yet she's turned her life around, and she's become completely involved in prison ministries and everything. And we're actually launching a program to get masks into prisons to save the life of prisoners because of COVID. And she's been instrumental in getting comfort cards into prisons and things like that. And on the one level, I have another theory, and I'll share it with you. I believe that most of the people who are in prison, if their neural systems are firing so badly because of injuries that and I'm sure there are chiropractors who go into prisons, and if some of those things were taken care of, it would help, just as it helps schizophrenics. Because if your neural system is out of alignment, you're going to bump up against the universe in 1,000 different ways.
Yeah.
And it happens. That's why when I teach young actors, I recommend that they look into chiropractic and massage and athletics, just in the way you'd look into brushing your teeth before a performance, because you need to release endorphins into your system, and you need to correct yourself and to make sure you're not coming from pain and angst and all these other things. So anyway, we're going to be working to deliver masks to prisoners. Of course, also, I realized a long time ago, you don't have to be a bad guy to end up in prison. There are plenty of people who fall afoul of the law, and you can be quite a good person and end up in prison. So,
well, can I share with you a quick story?
Sure, please.
About 3 or 4 years ago. I mean, I my background is comedy. I always wanted to do acting. I can't get my SAG card, no matter how, especially nowadays with the COVID. But I'm going to try once we come out of this. But I would. A lot of my friends were doing independent stuff, which I really wasn't a big fan of. You get copy and credit. You don't get paid. So there was this one thing I saw. I said, let me give it a shot, because you never know. These little things can blow up to be big things. I've seen it happen very rare, but I've seen it happen. So there was this movie called Vendetta Games, and they were looking for a bodyguard for a drug dealer. So I fit the mold. So I went there. And I was supposed to be a bodyguard for a drug dealer. So I was in a car chase scene. So we were in Woodbridge, New Jersey. Now, first of all, this guy was such a nickel and dime guy. It was like one of those GoFundMe, Kickstarter type campaigns. He came to the set. He had GoPro cameras. That's what he was using. So we had to do this fake car chase scene. So he hands me a prop gun, which was an airsoft pistol, a BB gun. In New Jersey, you might as well have an AK-47. Now, years ago, when I was younger, I got into some trouble, so I'm not even supposed to be touching anything like that. I didn't know that. I thought it was just a regular prop gun. We shoot the scene. Now, I'm riding around out of the car, and I'm pretending to shoot. They were going to do all the dubbing and all the stuff afterwards. People in the neighborhood don't know we're shooting because he didn't even file for a permit because he tried to fly under the radar.
Sure.
So they call the cops. Cops show up.
Just to bring a firearm onto a set, and I know because I used to have a side business of supplying films with firearms. It's a felony now to even take. So you have to have a certified cinematic person, and I take one with my company.
Yeah, but this was just, it wasn't a legit firearm, but still, it was big enough. Cops came. Now, this was about the time when they were doing there was terrorist attacks in Paris. So tensions were high everywhere. The cops show up, SWAT team. They go, "Where's the guy with the gun?" I'm right here, sir. I had it in my belt. And, I said, "We're actors. We're shooting a movie." Let me just tell you, Patrick, it took me 2 years they wanted to give me 30 years in prison for that, for shooting a movie with a prop gun in New Jersey. It was the biggest, yeah, it's 3 years of my life that I can't get back. I was in jail for 4 days. They didn't want to bail me out to protect. They tried to tell me I brought the gun to them. They threw me right under the bus, this company.
Yeah,
And
well, see, that's where the justice system needs to be reformed in a lot of ways.
yeah,
Unfortunately, it's a human condition that institutions sometimes. Listen, I've spent some time in front of judges, and they've been from the wisest and nicest people to complete psychotics.
yeah, wow,
Complete psychotics. It's like, how did this happen?
yeah,
How did you become a judge?
yeah. I shake my head at that too.
Went through that.
Yeah.
A good story, but and you got to,
It was a hard lesson,
well, it's a hard lesson if you end up on the wrong side of a situation. We can all be in the wrong place at the wrong time, and things can go the wrong way, and
Yeah.
you need to have to overcome that. The things that people have to go. I think it's important to remember that everybody's going through challenges, no matter who they are, and that you trust that in the good things and know that there is some purpose in the universe to what you're going through. What do you think the purpose was for you to go through that?
You know what? I don't know if it's, I'm a big karma guy, but I haven't done anything wrong. At that point in my life, I wasn't, when I was younger, like my dad, he was a great guy, but he was a wise guy. And, I thought that's what I wanted to be. And I learned after a while that, I got to evolve. He never wanted that for me um, I don't know, it was I've
I
never
can
recovered
figure
from it emotionally and financially too. It set me back. I had to pay all these lawyers, and I had to embarrass myself. And it's and comedy wise, now when you Google my name, that's what comes up. All the articles about this trial, and they tried to paint me like Al Capone. He's the son of an organized crime figure. I'm like, he's been dead since 1990. Give me a fucking break.
Well, I can think of one positive thing, that it would give you empathy for somebody who's fallen afoul of the justice system.
Oh yeah,
And perhaps there's something to be done there to help others in such a way, because I deal a lot with wounded veterans and people
yeah,
who lost multiple limbs in some cases. And one of the reasons I wanted to do some of the films that I've gotten to shoot, particularly, is I wanted to provide what I call pivotal experiences for people, so that a guy who's lost a couple of his legs serving his country can be in a film and be treated with dignity, and can have a pivotal experience, so that he can say, you know what? I wouldn't be here doing this with Patrick Kilpatrick and having this pivotal, wonderful experience if indeed I hadn't lost my legs. So it's a tough one, but I also the most stunning people that I've run into who've gone through those cataclysmic wounds and things like that. A lot of them eventually do get to it, that this was God's plan for me, the universe's plan. And I'm glad that I went through it, because this is where I am today. And so if I can do anything as a filmmaker to provide that kind of thing, and I have 2 films coming up with stuff exactly, they're perfect for it. So I'll be talking to the veteran groups. Now, there's always the thing that people around them are concerned about, you're exploiting them. It's not that. It's to give them a pivotal experience so they can look back on their lives and say, if I hadn't had this wound, I wouldn't be here in this world-class movie. And at the same time, I think we could bring great attention to the difficulties that wounded warriors go through by employing them, great media attention, as well as turning some of them into significant movie performers when a lot of people are not giving them the opportunity to do so. I
Yeah.
know it can work. I mean, I'm very blessed. I have a good mind for coming up with solutions for problems. I call it solution methodology, and I'm really blessed. The solution to a problem has to solve both sides of the equation. So let's suppose you have illegal immigration or undocumented immigration. A solution to that problem is going to have to solve the Republican side, the Democratic side. It's going to have peripheral benefits to the country. It's going to have an economic basis that serves the country. And those solutions are possible, but a lot of people aren't using what I call solution methodology. You have a problem. You went through the ringer for this situation. That problem has to be solved by you need to have your record completely expurgated, cleaned up, and so that people are not referring to you in that manner. And it also has to aid people who might be in the circumstances that you found yourself in. So I would urge you to think about first, as you're doing, always talk about it and always revel in it and always realize that that was an injustice and that you don't want other people to see that injustice. And so you could actually do some speaking on that regard of how the justice system, unless it's implemented by people of the highest caliber, is a flawed one and could do some great damage. So there is a solution to that. And by the way, I think it would elevate your comedy and it would elevate your creative life by doing that. Maybe you should just do a theme show of all people who have been abused by the justice system. That would be a way of doing it. Really interesting stories. Because
that's a good idea. I like that. Yeah.
That's a good television show right there.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. I don't wallow in it, Patrick. I turned it around and I turned it into a positive. A lot of people know me. There was good and bad with it. I made my peace with it. I don't, I can't undo it. I'm ashamed that I had to go through it, but I'm not ashamed of it. You know what I'm saying? So, I mean, it is what it is. I'm a North Jersey guy. I grew up in Newark, New Jersey, where the men are men and the sheep are scared. So, it could have been a lot worse. And you know what? I actually wanted to go to trial, but they were telling me, no, just take the probation for 2 years, whatever. I didn't want to get into that whole system, but I was actually ready to go to trial. I would have did the 30 years if I had to, because that's my character. I'm a fighter. I don't candy coat nothing. My father was like that. I guess it's tough love or I don't, I tell you like it is. I'm not to be mean, but you know what? Candy coating stuff for people doesn't help them. And in my opinion, I don't know if I'm right or wrong, but that's just my mentality.
Well, there's a delicate balance between candy coating it and operating with insensitivity and lack of diplomacy. It's something I've had to learn. You're talking about motivating people. Motivating people in a Marine Corps sergeant way, I'm not so sure is it's the right way for some people, but it's certainly not the right way for everybody. As a director, you have to be a little bit more nuanced than that. Now, there are directors I know they're mostly old school and they're no longer performing that way, but they're like, you do it my way or you get the hell off of the set.
Right.
I think things are sometimes a little bit more nuanced and that kind of thing, but there's sometimes where you just have to tell people, hey, you're either in or you're out.
Right. I'm not that hardcore, but because I'm very sensitive to a lot of people, but I've gotten softer over the years, not to where I could be taken advantage of or anything, but because sometimes I'm not always right. I make mistakes. I bleed, I'm not superhuman, but I just thought, that I guess, being hard edged and stuff, because I guess that's the way I grew up. And I realized, like I said, I've gotten older and wiser, and I've evolved as a person. So,
Yeah, I was going to say that sounds like wisdom. We
yeah,
don't always have to be the tough street kid. We don't always have to be guarded against everything. Yes, it's a delicate balance. I think the expression of life is about balance. The good Lord, the universe gave us the ability to be hardcore and the ability to be diplomatic. The question is the balance of those things. And it's like martial arts. What's a great martial artist? It's not always somebody who goes to war. It's
right,
somebody who dodges the energy of his opponent
right,
and uses the energy of his opponent to direct the energy elsewhere. Think about this. That brings to mind the Chinese. The Chinese study the art of war, and they've been doing it for thousands of years. The unrest that's going on in this country is straight out of the playbook of the art of war.
yeah, Sun Tzu, yeah, yeah,
You want to take over a country, you send provocateurs and people to create unrest. Now, I think it's kind of frightening when you think what's going on in the world today. So
yeah.
we have to be very resolute as citizens and respond to our better angels, as Abraham Lincoln would say. And you can't take it with you anyway, brothers. And
Yeah, exactly.
what the hell? You're only here for a short period of time. Your only legacy is what you do. I don't care if you're Bill Gates or if you're the fellow who owns Oracle or whatever. And I seem to be addressing the rich. I have no problem with rich, but you can't take it with you.
Right,
So
exactly,
you might as well do really great things with it while you're here.
exactly. And
Um,
you know what, Patrick, you're one of my favorite guests we have on. Every time you come on, it's a home run. And you weren't kidding when you said you had a lot going on. So let's rehash this. You're gonna run for mayor of Venice, which if I wish I could vote for you. But you have two movies out: Catalyst,
City of Los Angeles.
City of Los Angeles. Okay,
One has to be a resident of the city of Los Angeles to not only vote but to sign the signature deal.
right. So you have two movies coming out: Catalyst and Nightwalk.
Nightwalk's the first Moroccan film to ever come to Hollywood. I play a character I call the towering vessel of hate. Um,
Oh boy.
Literally got to abuse every cultural group on the planet. Fantastic experience. Here's another thing. We all, as Americans and as citizens, we do when COVID can allow. We need to travel. I got to go to Morocco and I got to see, yes, the repressive nature of Islam, but I also saw the hope that Islam gives to people there. And I also saw a country that was very, very clear and very, very direct about Judaism is the first religion that was started and that Christianity was the second and Islam was the third. And they have it in their churches. They have it in their mosques, right on the tablets of that. And can it be dangerous in Morocco? Yes, it can. But as a country, I've never seen people more welcoming, more gracious, more incredibly nice than I've seen in Morocco. It's not like, and then you fly to Paris and the people in the airport are completely rude.
Don't get me started about the French.
Yeah, but my point is we need to travel and experience as many things as we possibly can and not be rooted in the past or the negative things that have happened to us, but rather realize that the future is not the past. Thank you so much for letting me be with you.
Well, what's the now? What the deal with the second book? Is that's still being written, or that's close to fruition?
No, I wrote 600 pages for the volume, but I made a decision that 600 pages, given modern attention spans, and also and I'm so grateful I made that decision. I wanted to put out the first one and then the second one. Now, the second one, I was about a page, and so it's already written, but I was polishing it, and the exercise of doing a follow-up, you want to make sure you don't have any repetition and that kind of thing, unless it's calculated repetition. And wanted to make sure that you're elevating, like a good sequel, that you're elevating the exercise for people, the product. And so hence the illustrations from my son, and to make it a bigger book. And it all has to do with show business, because I knew this book would be of great, even greater interest, because people want to know about show business, and they want to know the truth of it, and the fun of it, and the glory of it, and the
absolutely,
hell of it. And so I was about 120 on the polish, and COVID hit, and I got hired to do the production of this movie, which I actually think is more important than my book. So we're doing this movie first, and all of that, because those are my children too. I have to do the movies. The book, when it comes out, I don't know, but we're even thinking of doing an unexpurgated director's cut, if you will, of the first volume, because I realized that I hadn't included a lot of things that I wanted to in the first one. So I think more likely we'll just do the second volume, and it'll have a section about things that I forgot or I.
That's cool. I look forward to that. Patrick? What's your website? If people, because we have a lot of we get new listeners all the time. If they want to pick up the first book, where can they go?
They can go for an autographed copy to KILPATRICK.com. I think they'll have a lot of fun, because I designed that one like a pinball machine as a website, and it reflects the COVID times that we live in right now. I just completely revamped that site and wanted it to be an expression of artistry and fun for what we're going through now.
Absolutely.
So they go to KILPATRICK.com. And they can get an autographed copy directly from me. And a portion of the proceeds of that go to Disabled Veterans of America.
Amazing.
And they'll get the autographed copy, or they can go to Amazon or Barnes and Nobles, and they can get the copy. It won't be autographed. We haven't done a lot of signings recently for obvious reasons.
Yeah.
So I urge them to go to PatrickKilpatrick.com. The other website is udfilms.com. Stands for Uncommon Dialogue Films.com. They can always reach me through that for the film and the consulting things and all of that. And I'm on all the Twitter and all of those things too, and Facebook Professional and Celebrity and all those platforms, blah, 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 but we try to do things that are of value to people.
And you're doing a hell of a job, and more power to you, Patrick.
God bless you, man. You've given us a great. By the way, if you want to develop that show, we should talk about it. We'll call it Unjust.
I'm in. Let me know.
It'll be all studies of people who've been terribly abused by the justice system.
Absolutely. You know what?
We'll have to vet them very
well
into their stories, but that's a good idea, and it can be done very charismatically and very
tastefully. Yeah. So, I hear you. I'm in. Well, you know what? I'll call you next week, and we'll put our heads together, and but as always, you're amazing. And like I said, anytime you need me, you know where to find me. You have an open door, my friend.
Same. So you know how to get a hold of me. So stay well and stay up. I want to leave your people with one thing. Look, it's a really challenging time for a lot of people, but it's never all black and all white. There's glories afoot, and there's great opportunities out there if you apply all the gifts you've been given. And I truly believe that it's a miraculous world, and you can turn around almost anything if you really apply yourself. And I'm grateful for the culture we live in that allows us to do that. So onward and upward.
That's what I say. My friend, God bless. Congratulations. Say hello to the new wife for me, and please stay safe. And let me know when you begin your campaign, because I'll push it on my end.
Thank you very much.
Onward. You got it. Patrick Kilpatrick, everybody. Take care.
Cheers.